This is gonna be a mess.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to the Trick Shift Garage. Today we are going to be working on CV joints. So me and Bob have been looking through our YouTube analytics and we've noticed you guys have been watching but not subscribing. So can you please do us a huge favor, huge favor, and just hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel out. It helps us try to, bring more content for you guys. So hit that subscribe.
That was good.
So hit that subscribe button. Thank you. All right, step one, we're gonna go ahead and remove the brake caliper bracket bolts. There's gonna be 2 of them, and the size of the bolt is a 19 millimeter. And since I couldn't get my impact wrench on the bottom bolt, I just used my torque wrench to break it loose. Although ideally you would want to use a breaker bar there instead, and then just loosen it up by hand. Alright, so once you get those 2 loosened up, you can go ahead and take off the brake line clip. You can just hit the 2 tabs on the right side and then just knock it loose with a hammer. And there we go. And once that's done, you can go ahead and remove the 2 bracket bolts. So next you want to bend the caliper at an angle from the rotor to help pull it off. There we go. Alright. It was a little bit tricky on finding a place to set the caliper, but I ended up jerry-rigging up this bungee cord, kind of wrapping around the piston, and that, I think it was a coolant line or something, just to hold the caliper in place. Alright, the next step is to go ahead and take out the cotter pin. Alright, and then next we're going to go ahead and use a 32 millimeter socket on the spindle. And I just use the impact wrench to loosen it and take it out. And then go ahead and tap it with a ball peen hammer. The next step will be using a 21 millimeter on both sides of the strut bolts. We're going to go ahead and use an impact and break them loose. Alright, we can go ahead and take out the bolts. And I came across a little bit of a problem on this lower bolt. I don't know why it was binding. I was able to get the nut off fine, but the bolt just didn't want to come. So I just grabbed the impact gun, and in a second here, I guess I gave it a little bit of a fight. But in the interest of saving time, I was like, oh, I'm not going to waste any more energy here. So I grabbed the impact gun and just lightly just kind of feather the trigger and just let it kind of unwind, and there it goes. So not a huge deal, but I mean, if you come across it, just use the tools that you have available in front of you. All right, so that's coming off, and I did break the axle loose with the ball peen, but apparently the rust on the outside of the spindle was keeping it from going all the way through. So I just had to go in and out with it a bit, and eventually it came through. It was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. Okay, so when pulling this axle out, you want to make sure it's as straight as you can get it, and then give it a direct pull straight out. It took a little bit of time, I'm not gonna lie. It took me quite a few tries to actually get this thing to come out. In the interest of trying to keep the video as short as I can, I'm going to show a couple series here of me trying, but it definitely took longer than this. It was not as easy as I'm showing it here. There we go. Yep, there it goes. So basically what's happened is there's a little lock washer, or I don't think it's called a lock washer, but there's a little washer inside that axle. As you can see in the picture here, it keeps the axle from accidentally coming out, but it's a pain in the butt to pull out when you're trying to. And it's also a pain in the butt when you're trying to push the new one in. This took a while too. Again, you want to have the axle as straight as you possibly can. and a lot of tries and a lot of luck. Eventually it did go into place. But yeah, it was just a lot of trial and error and just trying to feel to try to get that washer to fall in. Yeah, 30 minutes later. Yeah, it probably felt that way. But eventually, as you can see, I got it in, and the way to know that you got it in, you'll feel it go, it'll push in, but you also want to kind of pull it out, because that's the test to see if that locking mechanism, that's like a little washer that goes around the axle, is actually going to hold it in place. And if you can't pull it back out, then you know you got it in and you're good. All right, here I'm trying to show how close the axle is to the actual transmission. It's very close. So now I'm just trying to show that that's how you know you got it in. All right, so now we got that side done. Now we're simply putting this the axle into the new wheel bearing. As you can see, I replaced it. Now, if you're keeping your current wheel bearing, make sure you use some general purpose grease on the axle. Once you get the axle into the new wheel bearing, you want to torque that down. I didn't show it, but you want to put the bolts back in the strut just to hold the wheel hub into place. If you look at the top screen, you can see half of the bolt showing before you tighten it. Okay, so here's the lock washer thing, and for some reason on this side it did not want to go in. I don't know why. I think it was just that washer lock thing I had was just not lined up properly. So I just ended up using the old cotter pin actually. As long as there's no damage, or it's not rusted, or it's not about to disintegrate on you, you can reuse cotter pins. It's not a big deal. So as long as it's in good shape. But I mean, if your new one works, by all means, use it. Mine didn't, unfortunately. Okay. So again, putting on the strut bolts. And we're going to zip these down, make them snug. Again, I really like the impact wrench. I think I'm going to get one. I really do think I'm going to get an electric one. Okay, 103 foot-pounds, 21 millimeter size, and just tighten them down nice and easy. I do apologize for the camera, because it started raining around this point, I believe, and there was water getting on the camera. But just be careful if things are wet, like bolts and stuff. They can easily slide off. You could strip a head or threads or what have you. Just take it easy when you're tightening down things this tight. Make sure to apply some anti-seize compound on the wheel bearing assembly to keep the rotor from sticking to it. You don't have to go over the whole area, but get the main spots at least. And there's the rotor. And then we put the lug nuts on just to keep it from falling on me. Okay, so then once you got these on, the next step is going to be to put the caliper assembly, all of it, back in place. Here we go. And you want to make sure that the brake pads on both sides are where they need to be. And grab one of the bolts. Make sure you got thread locker, of course. And just finger tighten that one in just to hold it in place. And here goes the bottom. It was not a very good day in terms of weather. And these caliper bolts, they get tightened down to 98 foot-pounds. Notice how this time I actually mounted the caliper, or I should say I mounted the wheel hub back to the strut to tighten these down. It makes it a lot easier. So if you want to do it that way, do it that way by all means. Okay, and then here goes the little clip to hold the brake line in place. A couple taps with the ball peen. Boom, there it goes. Okay, the next step is to use Nissan NS2 CVT fluid. I couldn't find that, so I grabbed AMSoil 100% synthetic fluid. It works even better than the stock factory fluid, so by all means, why not? Why not get better fluid? And I lost fluid when I was pulling out the axles, and as you can see here, it's kind of fuzzy, but there's the line right there. You want to make sure you get between the two notches. I took about a half of a quart I had to use for it. But other than that, that's it as far as this job. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you on the next one.